Hi class, welcome again to another session on rehabilitation engineering. So in the last video, we had a detailed discussion on coordination and the importance of coordination. Now, there are certain components for coordination of activities. First of all, the first component is volitional component, where it is expected that the patient is able to control and coordinate the activity, right? So by control and coordination, I mean to say that the patient is first of all able to initiate the activity and then maintain the activity as long as they fancy doing the activity, and then stop the activity whenever they want to, right? So starting and like prolongation and ending of the activity should be the patient's decision. So that is volitional component of a coordination activity. There's the second component is the perception. So perception is the processing of sensory and visual feedback of patient that they receive after initiating the activity. For example, it's a very cold day, suppose, and then you want to your hands are very chill and you want to warm them up. So you go next to a heater or radiator and then try and warm your fingers up. But after a certain period of time, you feel that the heat out of the radiation is beyond our tolerance level. You feel that your hands are warm enough, and any further warming of the hand is becoming uncomfortable or painful. So in that position, you should be able to, like, you're getting the feedback, sensory feedback from your from the sensory nerves that are in the palm. You're getting the feedback that the hand is warm enough, and any further warming of the hand can be injurious. So you take the conscious decision of pulling your hand away from the radiator. So this is perception. So you and I can probably do it, but for a person with cognitive disability, it is hard for them to take that decision instantaneously. So perception of the patient should be kept in mind while they are performing the activity. The last one is engram formation. So engram is nothing but a particular sequence for a particular activity gets automatically registered in the brain. So in order to have that level of expertise, you should have performed the same activity, say probably tens and thousands of times. So imagine a child who is just learning how to write, right? So you teach them how to hold a pencil or a pen, and then they start practicing their alphabets. And once they start practicing their alphabets for a few thousand times, you can see that they automatically are able to write them up. And then our speed or our handwriting when we were writing in our first grade was very different from our handwriting and the speed of writing when we were in the 12th grade, right? So we have been writing for 12 years, our homeworks and everything. So 12 years is a long time to practice so much writing. So much so that it becomes a reflex activity. You do not consciously think that you need to hold the pen in a certain way and move your hand in a certain way to form an alphabet. However, you would have been thinking about it while you were writing for the very first time. If you were to write an A, right? So you think about the left slanting line, the right slanting line, and the horizontal line to form an alphabet A, capital letter. However, once you are mastered the ability to write alphabets, you just don't think about it. If you are told to write an A, you write an A. That's it. So it becomes a reflex activity. Again, I took the example of cycling. So when you are learning how to cycle, you're very conscious about your body. You're very conscious about the fact that you might fall. You're very much dependent that the person who's teaching you how to ride the bike is actually holding from behind and helping you ride the bike. However, once you have mastered the art of balancing in a bike, you just don't care. You just sit on the bike and start riding. All you care about is your destination and how fast you can reach your destination. So, what I'm trying to say is, any activity that we do, if we practice it a few thousand times, then the sequence of the activity automatically gets registered in our brain, and that is engram formation. Engrams are very very important when you're dealing with people with learning disability, because re-educating them requires engram formation for every activity that they do. So you have to make sure that you repeat these activities in as long as possible till the patient actually masters them, so that the point at which the patient has mastered the activity or is able to perform the activity with minimal assistance and minimal effort, then that situation is called that is the point where the engram formation has occurred, we can conclude. So another problem is ataxia. Ataxia is degenerative disorder of the nervous system, and if there is a lesion in the cerebellum, then that results in motor ataxia. So information from the brain to peripheral system is hampered, and if there is a lesion in the posterior spinal cord, then sensory information is hampered. So that's called as sensory ataxia. So sensory information is the information that is transmitted from peripheral organs to the brain, right? If the lesion is in the cerebellum, then brain is not able to communicate with the peripheral organs, and if there is a lesion in the spinal cord, posterior spinal cord, whatever information the peripheral organs are trying to send is not being sent to the brain. I think I've spoken enough about the components of coordination activity and ataxia. I shall see you again in another video where we shall discuss coordination exercises further. I hope you take care till then.